Yeah, I had a past guest by the name of Stan Norrit. Mm-hmm. His father was an analyst for the CIA, and apparently his father had some knowledge about how they were running drugs into Arkansas. And the way they gave Stan's father a retirement was they gave him a shotgun blast to the back of the head.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, as you talk about Dr. Kelly and, the way that he was shot, right off the bat, you have to question, someone probably high up didn't want the information out the way he was getting it out. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, with the lost train of thought for a second there. You put out a book in 2005. Mm-hmm. It's called Spies, Lies, and Whistleblowers. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's basically the full account of what Shayla and I saw going wrong within MI5. All the detail, also what it was like to be recruited and work there a bit. But it also covers the whistleblowing years, where we had to go to the press with our disclosures, because there's no official channel you can go to in the UK without breaking the law. If you want to report murder on the part of the spies, the only person you can go to is the head of that spy agency. So you can imagine how far you get with that. So it covers the whistleblowing years and the court cases as well, and also how the media is manipulated and influenced not only by government spin doctors but also by discrete sections within the spy agencies. For example, MI6, the James Bond wing, has a section called IOPS, which stands for Information Operations, which is there deliberately to plant fake stories and spin stories in the media. So it covers a whole range of different issues. And this book has a bit of a checkered history, because it was actually written in 2003, once the court cases had finished against David Shayla. And I had to submit it to MI5 for clearance, of course, because I'd worked for them, and if I hadn't, they would have prosecuted me and put me in prison. And they sat on it for almost a year and a half. They would not clear it, despite the fact that I'd worked for them. I knew what could damage national security, and I'd written it very carefully so I wouldn't damage national security but would report the crimes. And they made me take out ridiculous bits. They asked me to take out a section of this highly, highly confidential surveillance technique that none of your listeners will have heard of, called CCTV. So, yeah, quite. It's a big secret, yeah? You never heard of that? Anyway, rather than taking out text, what I did was black it out to show that I'd been censored. When it was eventually published in 2005, none of the national media would review it. In fact, I heard from some of my journalistic contacts they were told they weren't allowed to, despite the fact that very few... excuse me, my voice is going... despite the fact that very few spies ever actually come out and write a book. Normally it's a huge thing. They were actually warned off from reviewing the book. So it continues to sell, but I gather it's quite difficult to get hold of.
As you were mentioning about how the government hands information over to the press, I remember down in the United States when my wife and I were down there, that Bush allegedly disbanded this organization that the U.S. government had founded, which gave stories to the press. Mm-hmm. But behind officially that would happen, but unofficially, a lot of the press has later been proven to be nothing more than probably one of the best fictional novels ever written. Right. Mm-hmm. With that said, you said something about shadow governments. I remember running into a gentleman who used to be the leader of this group called the Phoenix Group. Mm-hmm. In Vietnam, he was in charge of deciding which areas would get bombed. The way that they gave this gentleman a retirement gift, right? They turned around and one of his so-called best friends turned around and said, "Here, hold on to these stocks, and I'll come back and I'll get them." And all of a sudden, the police showed up, and the stocks he's holding on to, he got nailed for insider trading.
Good God.
And as he ends up in jail, the next thing you know, they broke both his hands.
Oh.
So, and then the next person that took over after him in this Phoenix organization, we met his son at the same time. So when we were in Las Vegas, we met a lot of interesting people. But I was wondering have you ever heard of any other shadowy groups that basically are out there, which the mainstream people may not know of? That just a few names, because when stuff starts hitting the fan, it's a good idea to know which groups are behind this, but their names. Yeah.
I mean, certainly there are informal groupings. They tend to sort of formulate themselves as think tanks. Probably one of the most notorious is the Council for Foreign Relations, which is a sort of transatlantic organisation to which very senior politicians and businessmen and statesmen get invited to join. I think that was set up by Brzezinski, I think. There's also, in the UK, there's something called Chatham House, which is a similar type of think tank, again, very transatlantic, sort of American, UK, and the Anglo-Saxon countries in Europe. And of course, most notoriously, I suppose, recently, there's an organisation called the Bilderberg Group. Now, this is something that was out there on the internet as a conspiracy theory for about the last decade. Everyone said, oh, you're a nutter if you think such a thing would exist. And the premise of the Bilderberg Group is that world leaders, business leaders, royalty, and those who are probably the future's movers and shakers get together once a year for an informal discussion about where the world's going, what the next big issues are going to be, how they're going to respond to them, which wars they're going to fight, that sort of thing. As I said, for a long time, everyone thought this was some mad conspiracy theory. And now it's been proven. In fact, they met very recently, I think, in Greece. Yeah. That they do this. And again, these are people who are democratically elected to represent us as part of our government, going off and making undemocratic decisions with other heads of state or big business or whatever, with no oversight, no accountability, and no reporting back. So we don't know what they are deciding for us in our name. And it's highly undemocratic, and this is a problem. But again, this comes, as I said, this was something that was seen as a conspiracy theory for a while, and now it's just proven mainstream fact. These things go on.